Let me tell you something that most people don't want to hear, even though they sense it's true. Money is not primarily a math problem. It's a behavior problem. If money were just math, the wealthiest people would be the smartest ones. They'd be the ones with the highest IQs, the best degrees, the most sophisticated models. But that's not what we see. Instead, we see people with impressive credentials living paycheck to paycheck. And we see others with ordinary incomes quietly building stability, freedom, and peace. That gap exists because money obeys psychology long before it obeys arithmetic. Most financial decisions aren't made on spreadsheets. They're made in moments of fear, excitement, envy, boredom, and stress. They're shaped by the household you grew up in, the crises you lived through, and the stories you absorbed before you ever earned your first dollar. Someone who watched their parents struggle to pay bills will treat money like oxygen. Someone who grew up in abundance will treat it like water. Always there, always replaceable. Neither person is irrational. They're responding to the world as they experienced it. That's the first thing people miss about money. What feels reckless to one person feels responsible to another. And when you ignore that, financial advice stops working. We love universal rules. We want clean formulas that apply to everyone equally. But money doesn't work that way because people don't work that way. A strategy that looks perfect on paper can fail completely in real life if it asks someone to behave in a way they emotionally can't sustain. That's why so many people abandon good plans at the worst possible moment. Not because the plan was wrong, but because it was incompatible with human behavior. The real skill with money isn't intelligence, it's alignment. Alignment between your plan and your psychology. Between your goals and your tolerance for discomfort. Between what looks good in theory and what you can actually live with when things get uncomfortable. Because the only strategy that compounds is the one you don't quit. This is where investing quietly separates rational people from hopeful gamblers. Everyone says they're long-term until volatility shows up. Everyone says they can handle risk until their account balance drops and their confidence evaporates. In those moments, math stops mattering. Behavior takes over. That's why the most important financial decision you'll ever make isn't which investment you choose. It's how you behave when the investment disappoints you. Now here's where things get even more uncomfortable. Most people don't actually want wealth. They want the appearance of wealth. They want the lifestyle, the signals, the validation. They want the things that look like success, even if those things quietly undermine it. And the most dangerous part is that real wealth is invisible. You can't see someone's savings rate. You can't see their margin of safety. You can't see how many months they could survive without income. But you can see the car, the house, the vacations, the upgrades. So people optimize for what's visible. They spend money to prove they're doing well, rather than keeping money to ensure they actually are. This creates one of the great paradoxes of modern life. The people who look rich often aren't, and the people who are financially secure often don't look like it. Because wealth isn't what you buy, it's what you don't. It's the money you chose not to spend, the options you preserved, the flexibility you protected. That's why so many high earners feel trapped. They did everything they were supposed to do. They got the raise. They upgraded the lifestyle. They kept pace with their peers. And somewhere along the way, their bills grew faster than their freedom. Every new obligation felt reasonable in isolation. A better car, a bigger place, a few more subscriptions, a lifestyle that matched their income. But together, those reasonable decisions built a machine that now has to be fed every month. And once that machine exists, your options shrink. You can't walk away from bad jobs. You can't tolerate short-term volatility. You can't take risks that might reduce income temporarily, even if they increase long-term opportunity. You're no longer playing offense, you're playing defense. That's why income alone doesn't create security. Expenses matter more. Not because spending is immoral, but because fixed obligations reduce your ability to adapt. And adaptability is the real edge. People often confuse wealth with comfort. But comfort built on obligations is fragile. It only exists as long as nothing goes wrong. Miss one paycheck, face one unexpected expense, encounter one market downturn, and suddenly, the lifestyle that looked impressive becomes suffocating. This is why living below your means isn't deprivation. It's insurance. It gives you time. It gives you choices. It gives you the ability to wait instead of panic. The wealthy understand something most people don't. Survival matters more than optimization. You don't need to hit home runs if you avoid striking out. You don't need perfect timing if you stay in the game. Compounding doesn't require brilliance. It requires endurance. And endurance comes from margin of safety. That margin doesn't start with making more money. It starts with owing less. Lower expenses increase your ability to survive uncertainty. They allow you to make rational decisions while others are forced into emotional ones. This is why two people can experience the same market conditions and walk away with opposite outcomes. One panics because they need immediate results. The other stays calm because their life doesn't depend on short-term performance. Same market, different behavior, different results. Now let's talk about something most people avoid because it exposes them. The concept of enough. If you don't define what enough looks like, you will never reach it. The goalpost will keep moving. Every gain will feel insufficient. Every success will demand more. This is how people turn abundance into anxiety. They confuse progress with accumulation. They assume more is always better. But more without a stopping point doesn't create satisfaction. It creates restlessness. The hardest financial skill isn't earning money. It's knowing when to stop chasing it. Because without that boundary, you can't enjoy what you've built. You're always looking forward, always comparing, always upgrading. And comparison is the fastest way to turn wealth into misery. Someone will always have more, a better return, a bigger house, a newer lifestyle. If your happiness depends on outpacing others, it will never stabilize. That's why rational people set internal benchmarks instead of external ones. They define success on their terms, not in dollars alone, but in autonomy, flexibility, and peace of mind. Enough isn't a number everyone shares. It's a condition you recognize. It's the point where additional money stops changing how you live and starts only changing how you feel about others. And past that point, the returns diminish fast. This is where investing and life converge. The same discipline that prevents overtrading prevents overspending. The same patience that allows compounding allows contentment. People like to believe money will fix their stress. But money only amplifies who you already are. If you're anxious without money, you'll be anxious with it. If you're impulsive without money, you'll scale that behavior when you have more. That's why habits matter more than income. You don't suddenly become rational at a higher salary. You just make bigger mistakes faster. This is also why windfalls destroy so many people. Unexpected money exposes discipline. Those who have a plan use it to strengthen their position. Those who don't treat it as permission to abandon restraint. The money disappears. The habits remain. And the cycle continues. Rational investing doesn't require predicting the future. It requires respecting uncertainty. You don't need to know what markets will do next year. You need to design a life that survives whatever they do. That means avoiding leverage that can wipe you out. It means not tying your identity to short-term outcomes. It means valuing staying power over excitement. Volatility is the cost of admission. Impatience is the fee that ruins people. The market rewards those who can endure boredom, discomfort, and doubt longer than others. And endurance comes from simplicity. Fewer obligations, fewer emotional triggers, fewer reasons to make bad decisions under pressure. This is why some people outperform without ever appearing aggressive. They're not smarter, they're steadier. They didn't try to win fast. They tried to avoid losing. And that approach compounds quietly. Over time, the gap widens, not because of genius, but because of consistency. At some point, people will ask how it happened. They'll assume there was a trick, a secret, a lucky break. But the truth is almost always boring. Someone spent less than they earned, invested the difference, avoided obvious mistakes, and repeated that process long enough. That's not flashy advice, but it's durable advice. And durability is what matters. Because money isn't about impressing people you don't know. It's about controlling your time, your stress, and your options. The ultimate return on money isn't luxury. It's independence. When your life is structured so you don't need perfect conditions to survive, you gain a rare advantage, the ability to think clearly when others can't. That's what rational living looks like. Not extreme frugality, not reckless ambition, just clear thinking applied consistently over time. And if you can do that, if you can align your behavior with your goals, keep your needs modest, and define what enough means to you, you'll discover something most people miss. Wealth is what you protect.